knock your father's tractors. No, these are 10,000-pound, fire-breathing, diesel-smoking monsters as we kick off the brand-new season in the Lucas Oil Pro Pulling League. This line has been crossed by some of the most famous names in the history of motorsports. Mario Andretti, A.J. Foyt, both Bobby and Al Unser, Mark Martin, Tony Stewart. Since the summer of 1947, Salem Speedway has been one of the greatest bull rings around. But guess what? Today, it becomes a dirt track. Hello, everybody. I'm Stephen Cox, and welcome to the Hoosier Classic. This is the next round of the Lucas Oil Pro Pulling League. Today, it's tractors, big, mean tractors. To tell you more about them, my co-host, Doc Riley, is standing by.
For pulling fans that are old school, they love the Pro Stocks. The reason? Well, it's kind of the traditional tractor class. They weigh 10,000 pounds. They're limited to one turbocharger. They have a 680 cubic inch engine limitation, and their wheelbase 114 inches. Pretty darn simple. But we'll see in this class some guys that are old school and some guys that are going with the new component tractor. Now, the one thing about Pro Stock tractors is you want the front tires to get up in the air. So one of the interesting things that Pro Stock guys will do is put an awful lot of weight up here on front. Again, they're a 10,000-pound tractor class, one of the heaviest pulling classes on the entire Lucas Oil Champions Tour.
And I'm joined in the booth now by our expert analyst, Claude Wood. And Claude, the first guy we're going to see up is a veteran in Green Street, too. He's been around for a very long time, a native Hoosier. His name is Mike Boyd. Now, this is the 10,000-pound class. Again, a single turbocharger, 24.5 by 32-inch tire size. And what you want to do is get all the weight on the rear axles that you possibly can.
Absolutely, and you saw some weights back there behind the back tires. Doesn't matter where they are, it just cannot go over 10,000 pounds.
And think of that rear axle as a fulcrum. You want all the weight coming down on it, and you also want what Mike is doing. You want to steer, not with your rear brakes, but with the front tires and the steering wheel, and it works very well for Mike right out of the gate. Let's look at it again as he tops 284 feet.
And you saw from the start, the driver's eyes are on that chrome stack. As he builds the boost, he's looking for the smoke to go from white to gray to black. When it turns black, drop the clutch and you're underway, and that is almost a picture-perfect run.
And if you look at the top of the screen, that is turn 1 at Salem Speedway. So we are not actually out on the racing surface. This dirt track, this 300-foot pole here, is being built along pit road. That's where we're working right now. That's where Andy Lawyer will be coming up next on Wrapped Up. As he takes to the track right now, he will hook and look to top 284 feet.
Andy Lawyer building up the boost. He is underway, but not for long.
Well, that's less than 100 feet. Big problems there for Andy, so he will get another pull later in the day. Right now, though, we want to talk with Lisa Tatum and take a look at the decision maker. Lisa?
A truck and tractor pull wouldn't be known as a pull without a weight transfer machine, more commonly known as a sled. It's simple science, really. It's a chain-driven box filled with weight, and the weight differs with each class. And as the vehicle goes forward, the box moves forward, transferring the weight to the pan. As the weight moves to the pan, it gets harder to pull. The ultimate goal? To park this sled at 300 feet.
Joe Moore will come up next. We will see Andy Lawyer again later in the show because, again, if you do not travel 100 feet, you get a second shot at things. So we'll revisit that in a few moments. But right now, we're looking at Joe Moore from Three Oaks, Michigan.
And let's go old school with Joe. It doesn't matter exactly what brand you drive or the year that it's made. Joe has chosen to go with an old International Harvester.
237 feet for Joe Moore. And next up is Dan Christiani. The interesting thing about Dan is that he builds tracks. Indoor, outdoor. I mean, he knows tracks inside out. He builds them. So what's the good things from Dan Christiani?
And he should be able to figure this one out. We said earlier, this one a little bit difficult to figure out because we're on pit road. That's asphalt just under the dirt.
287.62 feet. That gives us a new leader from Clarksville, Indiana, Dan Christiani. You see him get out of the hole right here. And and a really, really nice hole shot. Look at those wheels spinning. A lot of ground speed there.
And a lot of people say, you know, you should have the rear wheels up at about 120 miles per hour. That is not all that important. What is important is that back wheel is biting into the dirt, and you've got traction to pull down the 300 feet.
Crosses those shadows, those will grow longer throughout the day, and that could affect track condition. We'll keep an eye on that. But again, right now, Dan Christiani is the man. The Lucas Oil Pro Pulling League is brought to you by Lucas Oil, the world leader in heavy-duty and high-performance lubricants. And by Dixie Chopper, the world's fastest lawnmower. And we welcome you back to the first round of the Lucas Oil Pro Pulling League. It's the Hoosier Classic presented by Dixie Chopper, and that is the beautiful courthouse in downtown Salem, Indiana, just about 5 minutes along Route 46 from where we sit right now. Tim Stone is up next on Rolling Stone. He's out of Greensburg. What's that put him, an hour and a half east of us, I think?
Not very far to come today. Of course, it doesn't matter how far he traveled. He wants to travel right now 300 feet.
Even about 290 would do the trick for him because he has to beat Dan Christiani, and he will not get the job done. 253 feet for Tim Stone. That brings us to Steve Wishmeyer, who has a brand new component tractor. Talk a little bit about component tractors. That's it. This whole concept just came up a couple of years ago.
It really did, and you see Steve Wishmeyer getting ready there inside that roll cage. He's tightening up the 5-point shoulder harness. He wants to be very snug in there because sometimes it is a rough ride, but getting back to the component tractors, the wave of the future.
Steve will go ahead and use the rear brakes on that. That loses a lot of momentum, 276.52 feet. That's more than 10 feet short of what he really needed. And tell me where this goes wrong, because he started out pretty strong here, but then you get to the middle of the track, right in the center of the run, and he veers.
Yeah, that's where it all changed on the Dixie Chopper replay. You can see he eased right into it, and everything is going just about perfect up until right about there. I think he had to touch that back brake just a little bit to keep from going out of bounds as it pulls him to the left side of the track. And maybe some engine problems.
It's the first major pole of the year, and it's Joe Klingen's first with full metal jacket out of McCordsville, Indiana. He will have an opportunity to go the 300 feet, but again, you don't have to go the full 300 right now. What you do have to do is 287.62 feet. That is Dan Christiani's mark in the Gotta Go Deer. He pulled pretty close to the top of the order, and everybody's been shooting at his mark ever since, but I tell you, Joel's not going to make it.
Something obviously going wrong inside the engine compartment there. You heard obviously the boost went away. Everything just turned off.
So Joel will back that machine up and hook a second time. Remember, he did not go 100 feet, so he'll get another shot at it. And also remember that he is the second guy to make a second go-round because Andy Lawyer did the same thing. Problems with his run earlier today. We will see him again coming up a little bit later, but right now, Joel Kingen's second time around.
And in truck and tractor pulling, 2 strikes and you're out. So as Joel Kingen gets ready, he slipped. Oh, problems again.
I wonder if that's a clutch problem. The exact same thing happened just a few moments ago. So Joel has 2 opportunities. That's the last one he will get, though. And Mike Linder in the Linder Brothers machine will be up next. He chatted with Lisa Tatum earlier today.
Now down here in the pits with some of the Pro Stock tractors, and more specifically the Linder Brothers tractor. Mike Linder from Edison, Ohio is going to tell us a little bit more about what he's going on here. Now, in this line of Pro Stock tractors, I see some of the newer models here. Yours looks like it may be a little bit older. Tell me a little bit more about your model, John Deere.
Well, it's a 1971 4320. So, and we've started with it, and we've just kept it up all these years. Basically, under the hood, it's the same as the newer looking ones. Other than this is still an original chassis John Deere tractor. Some of the newer ones are going with the new components, and this one's just not quite there.
Now you talk about under the hood. Now what exactly is under the hood that puts this in the Pro Stock category? Tell me more about the Pro Stock class.
Well, Pro Stocks are limited to 1 turbo, 680 cubic inches. We got 660 cubic inches in the single turbo. puts out about 90 pounds of boost.
And I see it's for sale here. Now, are you planning on building another tractor? Or are you trying to get out of the sport? What's going on with that?
No, we're wanting to build a component to try to keep up with the new technology, the way the class is going. And that's why it's for sale. Like it to help out if it can.
And on the Lucas Oil Champions Tour, that just shows out with the old, in with the new. The component chassis has really been what's taken over in the Pro Stock class. And I think that's going to be the trend you're going to see.
And if you don't have a component chassis underneath your seat, you may not be very competitive for much longer. Let's take a look at Mike Linder's traditional tractor here and see what he can get out of it. He needs 287 feet to top Dan Christiani's mark set earlier this afternoon.
Stephen, for a 1970-something tractor, that one still looks pretty sharp.
Looks great, and it runs great, too. He came up just about 5 feet short, and that will draw a big round of applause from the crowd here at Salem, Indiana. That was a very, very nice run for what some people consider an obsolete piece of machinery.
And a very smooth takeoff right off the line right there as he eases into it and lets the clutch out. Almost perfect to that point, right straight down the center of the track. And somewhere, I think it is about right there. He touched the brakes just a little bit, and that's all she wrote.
You got to wonder how much of that is driver, because that was a fine run. That puts him all the way up in third position right now after a number of competitors have given it their best. Now, talk a little bit about turning this rear axle into a fulcrum. Look at all those weights there underneath Steve Boyd's machine.
And that is really up to the crew chief, the driver. As we said before, it doesn't matter exactly where you put the weights. You just cannot go over 10,000 pounds. And most guys put more on the front end, not wanting that front end to bounce a whole lot.
And Steve Boyd loses the fire. I don't know if that's a mechanical problem, if it's a mistake, but it's something you're not going to see very much from Steve Boyd. He is out after 175 feet. That has got to be a huge disappointment for one of the real veterans in this series. The four-wheel drive trucks are coming up a little bit later, but right now, more tractors on the way as we continue from Salem right after this. Hello, everybody. I'm Stephen Cox along with Claude Wood. We welcome you back once again to Salem, Indiana and the Lucas Oil Pro Pulling League, and it's been fun so far. We've had a couple of guys make 2 runs, one of them yet to come. Andy Lawyer has had one opportunity, didn't get very far. He will run again in 2 more hooks. We'll see him after Tim Overmeyer and then Mickey Shorter. So here's where we stand. We have 3 guys yet to run, and those 3 guys are all shooting for 287.62 feet. That is the best pull of the day, turned in by Dan Christiani.
And keeping things still old school here with Tim Overmeyer. Look at the old tractor he's got there, but, well, I don't know if that's the problem.
More problems. Yet again, this is a 3rd time that we've seen this today. So as we look at the brand new press area that was put up just a few years ago here at Salem Speedway, we're going to back him up. Let Sandhill Binder hook one more time because he did not make 100 feet, and see if Tim's got anything for Christiani's mark.
And look how fast he came off the line. Got the wheel speed up in the back immediately. Right now, just a little bit of a bounce. That's not a bad thing, but he went left.
So Tim pulls up just a bit short at 274.44 feet. And see the shadows across the center part of the track just behind Tim. I want to talk about that again and talk about changing track conditions. It's had sunlight most of the day. The moisture tends to come up through the track. And as we watch Tim's replay, tell me how that affects the driver.
Well, it will affect it because there will be some places on this track, like you said, where the shadows are. It's going to have more moisture there. The sun is baking that Indiana clay on top. That part of the soil will be harder, so there will be parts that will tend to pull the tractor one way or another.
Tim Overmeyer's run is good for possibly a top 5, maybe a top 6. That depends on Mickey Shorter and Andy Lawyer. They are coming up next. And we only have 2 guys left with a shot at a 287-foot pull, which is what Dan Christiani turned in earlier today, and that's what Mickey Shorter will pull for with Buck Eater out of Sullivan, Indiana.
And you get a good look right there at that huge back tire. And we notice he has cut those tires just a little bit. You're allowed to do that, looking for a little bit more traction.
And let's listen to this diesel scream. And another one comes up short, 274 feet from Mickey. We'll take another look at his run and tell me where it goes wrong, because he had a very strong start here.
Well, he really did. And right now, as I mentioned before, his eyes are on that chrome stack. He's looking for the smoke to turn black. At that point, he's got the RPMs built up. Then he lets the clutch out. Not too fast. You don't want to really hammer it coming off the starting line. That would create a lot of bounce. He's getting a little bit of the front end to come up right there, but I think he hit the brakes just about right there, or the track pulled him over.
It did look as if he possibly touched that right rear brake and right rear tire just enough to try to straighten it out, and of course that can kill your momentum in a big hurry. And then there was one. We've seen Andy Lawyer earlier today. He had a mechanical problem, and he will hook a second time after failing to make the minimum 100-foot pull. So he'll have one more shot, and he is the last guy with a chance to knock Dan Christiani off the point position.
And I want to see where he sets up, Stephen. He's had all afternoon to watch the other pullers. He sets up to the right side of the track, hoping for something a little bit different. Let's see what happens. And right about there, the track drags him over to the left.
Boy, and that happened quickly, too. And when it goes in a very big hurry. Now, I want to look at this again, Claude, and try to figure out exactly what it was. He could have touched the brakes, or was it indeed the track? Was it something in the middle of this track that's pulling drivers over to drivers left?
I think we mentioned it earlier, and in just a few more feet, we will see it. Right now, though, he's right in the middle in the tracks that were laid down by the driver in front of him. But right here, where the shadows are, that's where he's pulled to the left. The moisture under the dirt? Probably so.
It looked like he had a fairly good balance on the front end of that tractor, but it wasn't good enough. He is all the way over toward the left side boundary, and that will end his run. And it will also hand the championship for the day to this guy, Dan Christiani. We look again at his winning run.
And you know, if you could draw it up on paper, I think it would look exactly like this run in our heads. Look at the speed. He really built up speed immediately.
And he also pulled over to the left there just a touch, but nevertheless, a very, very nice run by Dan. That will take home first place honors, 287 feet and 284, 282. Only 3 guys in the field to top the 280 mark, and it's been a very tough day and a difficult track. Now, here's what this does for the entire tour. Dan Christiani will get